So the second big question that we have to ask next year from ourselves is, what is the identity of a Louhimies version? Is it war film? Is it an upgrade from Wahlberg, or does it find its own special place between these two films?
Laitetaan levy pyörimään. Vals triste.
Niet pony mai.
Soittopelit on kyllä mukavia.
Go ahead, Zach.
Go ahead, me. Oh, God.
Or I can do it as well, as you wish.
I completely
Eeny,
forgot.
meeny, miny, mo.
Yeah, welcome to
I
the
completely-
Finnish culture, man.
Or
I forgot
Henrik.
I was leading this. No, I can
This
totally
is
do
gonna
it.
be your every year from this on in.
Yeah. Well, I have
Holy
some
shit.
shit written. I can also go with it, as
No.
you wish.
No, here we go. Welcome to the Flick Lab. I'm Zach.
Thank you.
I'm an American living in Boston. And joining me are two Finns to discuss a fantastic Finnish film, Karri.
Hey, I'm a fantastic Finnish film.
And Henrik. And Henrik as
I've
well.
seen Karri, and he's a fantastic Finnish film.
Where are you from, Henrik, this week?
Äänekoski. God damn it.
I'm from
Or
Helsinki.
to be absolutely honest, this week I'm from Helsinki.
Ooh, starting slangy. I'm from Helsinki, Finland. The correct
Big-
city.
Big fancy city. Look at you, big and fancy.
Yeah.
We are a bi-weekly podcast focusing mostly on international cinema. And today's episode, we will be talking about the 2017 film, The Unknown Soldier, or as it's originally titled in Finnish. One of you want to take it?
Tuntematon sotilas.
I'm going to try to not butcher so many things in this episode, including the title and the director's name and the actor's names.
Don't worry.
It's going to be very difficult. So, this film, I understand that you two have talked about the previous incarnations and adaptations of this story.
See.
This 2017 film, though, you have not discussed. So this will be new territory for us all.
Yeah, so maybe we could start with what Tuntematon sotilas is all about in Finland. We've discussed so much about this already, but let's go through it for the third time for the people who haven't heard about it. That's I understand.
Zach may need a Cliff Notes version.
Yeah.
Actually, can I tell you what my impression is? My impression is this story is taught to like every school child in Finland.
Basically mandatory reading in Finland school.
And that this story is probably akin to like the American Civil War, and that this is a profound moment in history. Every student needs to learn about it because this was sort of a turning point for the history of the country.
Yeah, except it's not slavery and cotton.
Well, sure. But it's one of the most significant moments in Finnish history.
Most definitely, and one of the most significant moments in Finnish TV every Independence Day at 10 p.m. or around on the public TV channels that want to air, usually the original 55 version. And there is some unspoken hate campaign, sometimes spoken hate campaign towards the 85 version. And 2017 is the new boy on the block, so don't know how many times that has been seen on TV, but the TV series has been on TV.
Now, the questions, because this is shown on television. Now, you said it's shown at 10 p.m., so maybe that's different. But it's, at least this version, it's very violent. I also have this impression that violence on television is very much limited on Finnish TV. Is this sort of an exception that gets made where no, we're gonna sort of let everyone see this? Or is that the reason it's shown at 10 p.m. so that the kiddies have gone to bed?
It actually depends a bit when it's shown on TV. I think Henry can recall that it's been also in broad daylight, well, insofar as there is any daylight at that time of year, but during like 2 p.m. or 6 p.m., something like that. So I don't know if it's a particularly violent film either.
Yeah, the original Edwin Laine black and white version is not that violent, at least not these days. It does have a violence, but like Laine didn't use blood effects, so it's very much, bloodless violence on screen. And if memory serves me correctly, it has been shown in daytime also in Finnish TV networks. Then again, when it comes to like showing unknown soldier in Finnish TV during the Independence Day and the whole tradition, that's actually an interesting talking point, because that's still a relatively recent event or a recent habit of the Finnish television networks.
Yeah, but Henrik and Zach is absolutely correct. This is like the super holy, the most best known Finnish film inside Finland and the best known Finnish novel inside Finland. And there's been these 3 adaptations, a TV series, some board games, and who knows what the hell else. So it's this kind of even more popular than Bible, you might say, in a sense.
God, there's a board game?
Yep.
Yeah, but with that, there also is the strange quality that its legacy is kind of built, at least in the sense that it exists today. Like the Unknown Soldier and the story it tells, and the reverence that it has in Finnish culture, it didn't exist there originally. It has been kind of manufactured as time has gone on.
Yeah, manipulated even, or it has changed, like serves more the original story at least nowadays. But we can get to all of that. Shall we talk a little bit about Väinö Linna for the 3rd time?
Let's do it.
Why not?
So, Väinö Linna was the writer of the novel, born in 1920 in Urjala, was a lumberjack and lived in Tampere. Also was friends to some degree with Mulberry, who did the 2nd version in 85. Famously, Väinö Linna was a bit against the original 55 version because it didn't completely satisfy his vision of what is in the original novel, the strong anti-war sentiments, whereas the 55 version is almost like a nationalist propaganda film, to be completely honest. And
Well, yeah and no.
yes and no. But yeah, Väinö Linna, yeah, he is most famous for writing the Unknown Soldier and also Täällä Pohjan tähden alla, also known as Under the North Star. And both of these have had film adaptations. All right, but let's move on from that and yeah.
Well, it's interesting that the 1955 version, so the 1955 film version was, well, I guess it's arguable, it could be seen as sort of nationalist propaganda. I assume it put the Finns in the light of always doing the right thing and always doing the right thing for the country and never doing anything wrong, I'm assuming?
Well, it's kind of a mixed bag. Like the original 55 version was some kind of a hangoverish version. They were fully aware of what the book was, but they wanted to kind of make it serve their own purposes. And maybe it was the film. Maybe it really was the film that Finland needed at the time because of war trauma, shell shock, and all of that going on. So people needed some kind of emotional release and have maybe some meaning for what was all this fighting for. I don't know if that film really answers that, except that kind of comforting words by the end of the film that, yeah, Finland came as the as a good second in this little competition.
I mean, we could have an entire other podcast just devoted to a country perhaps tweaking a story to make a country feel better after a traumatic event.
Excellent idea.
But then again, it has to be iterated since Zach is here and he's new to the whole unknown phenomena. Even though Karri's accusations towards the original film
There'll be a lot of that.
hold water, they are true, but this is kind of ties into the whole concept of the unknown soldier and its later on built up a legacy, because parts of the nationalistic side that people see with the Edwin Lyons version, like individual moments that these days are often seen in nationalistic light, if I've understood correctly, that stems from a level of misunderstanding considering the film. Like, perhaps most infamous scene in the original one would be the way when the moment when the film plays the Finlandia at the very end of the film. That's something that today's version also does.
Yeah.
And I've heard this, and that very much is like, it can't get more nationalistic than that. But if what I've understood from the film is true, and that's if, in the original meaning, it was meant in more kind of a sarcastic fashion. So when it comes to today, that film, that moment, and the nationalistic reading that moment gets in the film, that, once again, if what I've heard is true, then that meaning would be based on misconception.
Well, I've heard this thing too, and we discussed this in the 55 episode, and I voiced it out in some way that, yeah, it was the intention, apparently, that it would have been kind of sarcastic, ironic, having that kind of a feeling by the end of the movie, but that really doesn't come through. We totally agreed with that. It really doesn't come through. On the contrary.
No, it totally doesn't.
And Henrik also pointed out that the film is patriotic to a fault. Well, that may sound strong. I understand what you mean. And I don't think you are saying that it's completely patriotic. It's a funny way of omitting the things that should be there. Like seeing more of the bad side of the war, which was what the original novels, the whole point was anti-war. You don't really see it.
You don't, and you do get some like really serious, very somber patriotic moments, like for example the line that you quoted, that Finland came good second, and also that there's like a lot of negative behavior from the Finnish side that is not shown in the black and white version.
Yeah, and I understand that people in 55 weren't really interested in seeing the bad. So that would have been shock on top of a shock. But to be honest, these things happened there, and the book is talking about those things. So yeah, it's omitting, it's trying to be patriotic, it's trying to be happy-go-lucky, it's almost trying to be rillumarei, this kind of old Finnish style song and dance. Well, not dancing much, but a little drunken dancing. But yeah, that kind of a happy-go-lucky. Yeah, we are in the war and everybody's doing fine. Well, sometimes somebody's in a kind of an off mood when they have their leg blown off. But then we got to the 1985 version, which is by Rauni Molberg, and he was trying to get closer to the essence of the novel, and he did a pretty good job with this mostly handheld, mostly one take-ish, one camera, 3-hour film edition. And then came the 2017 version, which is more, well, 1985 also kind of aims for the same, the 2017, but maybe the key difference here is 1985 is so mulberry. It's trying to be super realism, just having like handheld camera, but unfortunately it doesn't always work for me. We can talk about that. 2017 is with the kind of 2017 film blockbuster standards edition with the values of the novel.
So perhaps we can maybe just go around and, and just give the high points of overall thoughts, and then we'll get into some nitty gritty as we go through.
Yeah, sure. Do we want before that to have a little bit of a history showdown again?
Okay.
All right. Well, I guess we'll play some stupid music just to lift off the muse. So once upon a time, big bad Soviet Union casus-bellied at Finland's border. In other words, USSR started the aggression, verified by historians from both sides of the border. This led to Winter War from 1939 to 1940. The Soviets lost many soldiers, but since they had more soldiers, they were able to steal land from Finland. This is like a child's edition, mind you. Later, big bad Nazis wanted to use Finland, and Finland wanted to use Germany. German goals overlapped with Finland's. They were never officially allies, but certainly in many ways de facto were. But Finland wanted their land back that they lost in a winter war, and Germany wanted to conquer St. Petersburg. This war was called the Continuation War. How original. June 1941 to September 1944. Finland didn't want to push further than Petrozavodsk, or Petroskoi, or Äänislinna. Accounts on this may differ. Some in the military held a Greater Finland ideology, pushing all the way to de facto Russian territory to Petrozavodsk was largely but not entirely retaliatory. It had strategic importance in case of a Soviet offensive. And Nazis fell, and Soviets pushed the border back to where it was when they stole Karelia from Finland. By some miracle, the peace negotiations went so that Finland was allowed to keep its independence. The terms included that Finland must push Nazi Germany out of Finland, and that was the Lapland War from September 1944 to April 1945. And Finland did push the Nazis to the northern Norway. Sorted.
Wow.
And with that out of the way, Zach can finally understand what happens in the movie.
Oh, it all makes so much more sense now.
I know that feeling, man.
So you're saying the Finns were the good guys?
Yeah, we're the
Okay.
good guys. We're
Okay, it's
yeah,
coming
and we
together
also
now.
won the war. Don't you forget that one.
We also won the war, and we did not collaborate. We did not collaborate with the Nazis. Except we kind of did, but...
So let me just say, as the foreigner, this was definitely a learning curve. I was having to learn a lot about history of Finnish history, World War II history that I had not particularly paid attention to, because typically in the States, when we learn about World War II, obviously we learned that Hitler was doing some bad shit in Europe, but we famously, the United States was very hands-off, and we did not get involved. And it was not until our hand was forced when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor in Hawaii.
Yeah.
And that is the only reason that we really got into it. And then from there, yes, we helped the Allied forces. The most famous thing taught in American schools about World War II, other than Pearl Harbor, because it was such an egregious attack on our own soil. But the second biggest thing taught is Normandy, the Battle of Omaha Beach, and D-Day. But we never really learned a whole lot about what happened east of Germany. Definitely don't learn anything about the Nordic countries and the USSR and their involvement, or how things were going on in Africa. A lot of that gets sort of skipped over in American classrooms, or at least they were during mine. So I learned a lot, sort of reading about this film, reading about the Winter War and the Continuation War, so that I could better understand the film before getting into it. And wow.
And that's a really weird thing with basically all the versions of The Unknown, but especially with 2017 take, that especially the 2017, it's meant for global distribution. Like the previous movies, they were very much made for the Finnish audiences, but Aku Louhimies version, it was made to be shown on Amazon Prime, and this was meant to go global, and it also did. And the story still is told in such a fashion that you basically, if you are not a Finn, you have to like do like whole reading about what actually happened in order to understand the movie. So this kind of omits to the same, like in global distribution sense, in the same mistake that the previous two films also did, which is that it's very much like the way how the story unfolds itself, it's still very much told for the Finns, even though the film itself is meant to go like outside of Finland.
I think it probably could have been. I think it is very accessible for non-Finns. I think had I not done any research, I would have gotten the basic plot of what was happening, but I felt like doing my research before. I felt like I really grasped onto, okay, I know what's happening here. I know who's doing what. I know why they're doing it and where they're going.
Question: when you were watching the film, was there some kind of opening subtitles or kind of explaining the war in very small details? Or...
No, the film just begins.
Okay, so it's the same version that I have.
The underwater shot.
Yeah.
But I think I felt better having more of a grasp on what was happening, and think I enjoyed the film more because of that. That being said, had I not done any research, I think I still would have enjoyed it, and I think I still would have been able to follow along, just maybe not quite to as much depth.
Yeah. I guess it's kind of understandable that not many people know about this Winter War and Continuation War, even though they're quite interesting, and I think they should be known more widely, even in Europe-wide. If I would ask like a general Spanish people out there, what do they know about the Finnish Winter War and Continuation War? Probably nobody would have any idea what I'm talking about. So,
well, I tell you what, I think films like this are going to help get the word out.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll sort of skip to the main point of my thesis here. I think this is the most realistic war movie I've ever seen.
Okay.
I think that this film should be seen by a lot of people. Not only for, hey, here's a little piece of history that is important and you should know. This is a chapter in the book of World War II that is probably not seen by many people and it shouldn't be overlooked. But holy shit, the way it is done is, I mean, this might be treasonous to say. I think this is better than Saving Private Ryan.
Well, that's honestly is a pretty high statement, especially taking into consideration exactly how praised Saving Private Ryan is.
Can we also then talk about how much shit this 2017 film also has had inside Finland? Because they always compare them to the old editions, and somehow the 55 is always superior and the best, and you can never beat it, apparently. Which is curious. We already know the 2017 version is, at least it's been said to be the most successful film of Finnish cinema history, of Finnish films at least. But also the same has been said about the 55 version. And the data is kind of hard to get correct with such of an old film.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very difficult to measure some of those adjectives, but it was definitely the most expensive motion picture in Finland, I learned, which I found so funny when it was the most expensive motion picture made in Finland for a budget of 7 million euros. I'm like,
that's huge money in Finland.
That's the most expensive. Like, didn't they spend like $250 making that Marvel film? Like,
yeah.
But I have to remind myself, Finland is a small country.
Yeah, normally, well, it depends. But there's a lot of the movies that get made in Finland are funded by by Finland, the government. They're kind of a
Really?
yeah. And in this movie's case, well, clearly there were also other parties involved because otherwise you can't really cover the 7 million, I believe. So
Interesting. So yeah, I think it's very realistic. I think it's very well done. You see war for what it is. You see. Let me preface this. I'm not a member of the armed forces. I never have been. I've never been in combat or on a battlefield. But this certainly feels like it's the most realistic to me.
Henrik.
And I can't wait to hear Henrik's thoughts on that.
Yeah, Henrik.
but-
Army stories.
But you see all the death and the despair and the evil and the shit and the pain, but then you see this camaraderie. You see these moments of peace and these moments of beauty and bravery. And I don't think war is just one of those. I think war has to be all of those. And you see it all in this film. So my overall general thoughts, wow, this is a tremendous film and it needs to be seen by more people. Let's go over to Henrik. General thoughts.
Yeah, what you just said is the sentiment that I've heard repeatedly whenever the 2017 version is being talked about. Like, these days, you kind of run into young people who make the statement that seeing this particular movie made them understand what war is like and how it felt like. Like, they didn't have that concept in them, or that insight, or that understanding in them before they saw the 2017 Unknown Soldier. And this is like the first time I've actually seen this film.
Really?
As treasonous as it is in Finland, but I hadn't really checked out Aku Louhimies version when it came out. I missed all the the whole theater release, and I also didn't I haven't bought the Blu-ray nor the DVD.
I was living in Poland, but I was able to. I went to the Finnish theater around Christmas to see it. Well, I was pretty lucky.
I just skipped all of that, and now I checked it out from the Finnish streaming service for this episode. And now, having seen the film, I kind of understand that sentiment, but at the same time, I'm kind of asking, really? Like, this was the movie that opened your eyes to what war is like. And I guess that might very well be, if you haven't seen set a number of war movies. At least two that we have already visited in this podcast. Those would be Malberg's version of The Unknown and also Come and See.
Yeah, but maybe something important to be said there, because everybody needs to start somewhere, and these do indeed sound like coming from people who don't know too much about war movies or Finnish war movies, whatever the case. But that's great. That's great if they get that kind of a feeling that is coming from this movie in particular. That's great.
Yeah, I guess that is great. Like, of course, it's always positive that you actually understand what war is like. That helps you to understand what the people who had to go through that war went through, and it also helps you to understand never to actually wish that you yourself would have to face a war of any kind. But at the same time, like, that's an emotional connection to the movie that I just did not have to that extent.
But you said that word feel, and there's a lot of feel in this film when you compare to the 55 version, which has this funny, happy-go-lucky thing that I was saying about. But it, of course, cinematography and storytelling in movies has gone through a lot in 72 years. But this film really, I feel, really tries to get all the possible emotional depth from these characters from the original novel without making it look too silly for its own good.
Not too silly, but I did find it on occasion too forced and too shallow.
I think you might be referring to, for example, the scene. I need the Vera scene when Aku Hirvinieme's character is crying in front of Vera when they are separated, right?
Yeah, actually, you hit the nail on the head. In fact, to me, it's like, and I'm not saying like the movie commits a fault here, but let me put it this way: the film came out, and even though I did not see the movie, I couldn't escape the media records that went around it, and a lot back then was said about the home front and how the home front now is a feature in the movie, and how it says something, and home front this, home front that. And now that finally I didn't check out the TV series, so I don't know what happens in that one.
Right.
But when it comes to the movie itself, I must say the home front was much ado about nothing.
Okay, two things. I think that this film could have gone a little bit further because we have seen these scenes before. But we haven't had this much emotional depth, sure. But maybe this could have been the movie where it would just kind of detach itself a little bit from the original novel, because the only thing that, as has been pointed out elsewhere as well, and I couldn't agree more, that the original novel is it's dragging the film down, because I feel that, to be completely honest, to be absolutely brutally honest, as we advertised ourselves before, Väinölänne's novel to me is, this is sacrilegious, okay, a bit boring, honestly.
You've both said something sacrilegious. I'm going to have to call the authorities.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder when we're going to be cancelled from the podosphere, or when the civil war or whatever war is going to start in Finland, because we keep talking here, but still we have been saying a lot of shit, but nobody gives a shit. Anyway, I wish that it could have just built better arcs for these characters. The novel doesn't allow that. They are just people in a war. They have backgrounds, but there's not really any arc. They are in the field, they are in the front, then they die in the front or do whatever in the front, and that's just the end. There's no arc really, or there's no emotional depth.
Yeah, and part of that, and this is now something that all of these filmatizations face off, is that the Unknown Soldier, the novel, it's kind of a like unofficial, kind of but not really sequel to the Under the Northern Star, Täällä Pohjan tähden alla.
Yeah.
Which is the magnum opus of Linna, where a lot of these characters like get their background, and then you get into what happens to them at the war, and that is like the Unknown Soldier.
Yeah, to be pointed out though that Unknown Soldier came before the Underneath the North Star. But the second point was that because you missed the TV series, you don't know that there was a lot going on between Aku Hirvinieme's character and Lady Vera. And of course, it is the way that it's cut in the film version is kind of jerky. Like, okay, they visit Vera, and it seems like immediately when they are about to separate from that particular meeting, then Aku Hirvinieme's character is in tears. But how it goes in the TV series is that they seem to be spending there like several days. Sometimes together, sometimes on bed, having sex, kissing, and doing all this emotional shit. And after that, when they realize that they need to separate, then that's what the tear is for. In the film, it doesn't really make sense in that sense.
What about Rocca's wife and kids? are they like in a major role in the TV series? Because they too sure as shit ain't in the film.
As far as I could tell, there isn't much difference. Rocca visits home. We see that in the film, right? Rocca
Yeah.
goes back to the front, and then at the end, they need to evacuate from Karelia. And it's the same thing.
Okay.
All right. Karri, general thoughts.
There's a lot of honesty about the film, and I feel the performances. Even when I compared to the 55 version again, I cannot fathom, and I haven't worded it out before somehow, I cannot fathom why in the 1955 version, where we actually have these war heroes with the biggest dicks Finland will ever see, playing these people who were in the war, you don't get that emotional connection from that, and you don't buy their performance. They are mostly horrible performances. Sorry, I'm gonna be super brutally honest here. Now that I've looked at these films again, I again watched this, okay, with like a double speed when it comes to the 1995 and 1955 because they take ages. I cannot fathom why they can't deliver the realism in their feelings. Is it some kind of a that their brain is completely shutting down the emotional connection to the war as they are performing those roles?
So you're saying in the 1955 version they used actual soldiers instead of trained actors?
Well, because everybody was in the war basically, so many of them were in the war.
That feels like it could have been torturous. Like, oh, you just went through this really, really terrible traumatic thing. I'm so sorry. Listen, can you do that again on film, though?
Yeah, but yeah, this honesty. You see the fear. You see more women in this version. There was some unbelievable interview. There was some lady, I think Yle, interviewing the director of Aku Louhimies, and I don't know if Henrik saw that interview clip where the lady asks something like, "Well, yeah, we have more women now in this movie, but not that much still, you know. There could have been more women at the front." Then there was an awkward silence, and the lady was like, "But yeah, okay, Aku Louhimies, this is how you like to roll with it, okay."
Wait,
I don't know where that was going, but
were there actually women on the front?
Not in the front, but there were these what we call lottas, these people women who would be helping the soldiers in different tasks,
Oh,
but
interesting.
not picking up weapons.
Yeah, helping to facilitate.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know where she was going with that. Yeah, never mind that. But honesty, fear, a lot of emotion, women. You see the destruction of the war. You have a lot of clips from the actual war in the TV series. You get a couple in the movie. So I thoroughly enjoy the film. I think it could have pushed its points further, and it could have taken a few liberties because this is the third version already. But I'm okay with that. This is the most polished version out of the three, for sure. It has really established characters and does as much as you can within the limits of Tuntematon, Sotilas and Sotaromaani with it. These two novels. So yeah, there has been some accusations about Americanism in this film. I'm wondering what you think about that, because there's been claims that there's Ramboism in the film, so-called Ramboism. When I compare these sort of heroic acts from the previous films, yeah, okay, they are more heroic perhaps. I don't think they are completely brain dead moves that they do in the film. They are heroic and crazy, but Ramboism? Is it too much emotion? Is it too much that we have deafness simulation in the film? Your thoughts?
Yeah, Ramboism is not something I saw in this film. To me, Rambo and that sort of style is very this sort of overly macho,
Yeah.
ostentatious display of sort of vulgar masculinity and toughness and heroicism. I didn't see that here at all. I thought these were very grounded. I mean, I think there's a nice balance of people being heroic and people also being terrified, and people saying, okay, we need to go do this thing. And they don't just, bounce over there like, all right, here we go, watch me, I'm going to do, like, they're unsure of themselves, and they're, Ramboism is the last thing I thought of.
Yeah, I wouldn't say Ramboism in that sense that Zach just described it, but I can see where the accusation is stemming from, because what this film does have is longer takes on certain scenes. For example, both of the tank destruction scenes, where first the one where the Hietanen destroys the Soviet tank, and later on where the moment when Koskela destroys the tank, those actually lasts longer here than they did in the previous films, and they are more of a kind of an event that these characters pull off. And especially the Hietanen moment, which in the previous films was kind of it was more quickly over, and in my opinion it was more done with the tone that, oh, this thing just happened, let's move on.
Yeah.
And in here it's like this whole event. There's also the moments where I do kinda see once again the argument of Ramboism possibly stemming from, which would be the moments when the characters are cleaning the trenches, where you are following like 2 or 3 guys as they go with grenades and machine guns blazing and just gun down the Soviets. Or the moment when Rocco and who was the other guy? Like, was it Lahtinen or who? When basically the Ruskies have trenched them in, and the 2 of them just like rush the enemy lines.
Yeah.
Quickly guns down some Ruskies, steals the bread, takes a bite, let's go. And like those moments, which are very much a thing of the 2017 version, and even though, once again, it's not Ramboism in the way how Zach described it. Like, it's not oiled muscles and these like, fucking no one can kill me moments, certainly not, but they are specific moments where you have individual characters doing these heroic feats, and the movie plays them off as events. And those type of moments, having heard like the stories that the veterans tell about their events, they did happen on occasion. There's a whole crazy history about crazy ass stunts that Finns pulled off during the 2 wars. But so it's not completely uncalled for, but it is something that the movie calls a special attention to.
Yeah, apologies to Zach, of course, if Americanism doesn't sound quite right, but that's what people say online, and that's kind of referring, of course, to the fact that we watch a lot of American movies, and there they have these superheroic, unrealistic scenes.
Oh, yeah, no, I totally understand the reference and think that that's a worthy adjective for it, Americanism. It's because you don't typically see Canadian action stars doing that kind of Rambo shit. So no, I'll take the description. I was wondering if we could
also, like, it's good to remember, or at least to mention to Zach, that what you see in the film, they are not actually the craziest antics that Finns did pull off, like in real life, during the war, especially if you start to count in also the Winter War.
Yeah, that's the war. If you want to really be patriotic about some war, perhaps look rather to the Winter War direction, where we still didn't push forwards with some Nazi help.
I was wondering if we could maybe go through and talk about any particular moment or scene or quality that really stuck out to you.
Like I said, it's a really polished looking film. Maybe, like I said before, maybe a little bit too polished. It might look a little bit too pretty for its own good when you compare it to Mulberry version. Handheld ultra realism, let's say. Then again, all movies look like that this 2017 film looks like, as in terms of the whole framing, the mise and the whole presentation. So it is what it is, and great job. So yeah, no problem. When I look at the other versions and I look at how they're framed, especially when I look at the 55 version, which may not be entirely fair, of course, sometimes you completely miss some key scenes, sort of, because you're not paying attention, because they are filmed and framed in a certain way. There might be like a distant two-shot of two guys talking, and then this would be when Rokka is in the trenches with what's the other guy's name, the sergeant, and Rokka is giving the whole monologue that I don't give a shit about all these medals and trophies and good words. I just do what I have to do. And in the 2017 version, there's these quite intense close-ups and kind of this confrontation with the guy, like, don't you try it with me, you little boy. You totally get that, but in the 55 version, okay, you forget it in an instant. So props for 2017 for that.
Henrik, is there a scene or a moment or a quality that you wanted to point out?
Not an individual scene, really. I kinda do appreciate the overall vibe that this movie has. As much as I am currently and I'm going to criticize it, but I do think that when it comes to kind of capturing some type of essence of war, it does pretty okay job. Karri most likely is going to demand some type of answer, like how do you put these films, some type of hierarchy, and when like with that in mind, I do have to compare, like, for example, the question which film tackles best how the war, like how I believe the war is like and how it feels like. And is 2017 version the best one in that regard? Not really, no, but it also ain't the worst one.
I think we'll have to all watch Steven Spielberg's Lincoln at some point, and then we can get into as much of American history as we're getting into Finn history here.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to point out was there's a scene in the beginning where they're getting ready to leave, and one of the officers says, "Remember, they're just men like us." And then there's a pause, and I, as an audience member, had this, oh wow, like that's so, what a sympathetic way to describe the people you're going to kill, that to remind them that they're also just men. And then he then says the second part, which is, lead will kill them.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if like that pause between there was so effective to sort of, it sort of gave me whiplash of, wow, what an interesting thing to say. Oh no, he's saying something else. But then I wondered if maybe that was intentional, of maybe there is a dual meaning there.
Yeah.
These are mere mortals. These are people who are in some ways just like you, countrymen who left their farms and left their businesses and all these things to come to war, just like you. And maybe there was supposed to be a moment of sympathy there.
Yeah, at least in this version, I strongly get the feeling that he was trying to say, kind of have something nice. Maybe the first thought that he was to finish the sentence in the way that he did, but it almost felt like he was noticing the reaction of his comrades and then decided that, yeah, I have to add this lead part as well.
And then 2 hours into it, when the soldier comes home and the kid says, "What's it like to kill a man?"
Yeah.
And he says, "I don't know. I only kill the enemy." And to see the regression from, remember, they're men just like us, to, I'm not even going to call them men. They're just the enemy.
Yeah, and that's kind of, unfortunately, yeah, that is the mentality that you have to keep in your brain, that you're probably able to kill anyone.
Yeah.
Just have to see them as something else than humans. Unfortunately, to an extent, even this third version kind of dehumanizes the Russians in a way that we never properly, again, see them. They are always behind the bushes, behind the rocks. We don't see them. We just see some prisoners, we see some bodies, we see Vera. But like, we don't get the other side. We see from the Finnish front, and I understand that in a way, and that's kind of how war movies often go. But it would have been kind of nice to see also from a different angle, to see what's going on the other front there, or the Russian front side.
Yeah, I think the portrayal of war it's very grounded. It's very real. There's one of the soldiers at one point says, "War is evil, no matter who started it."
Yeah.
Which I had to immediately go write down as a contender for favorite quote when we get to quickies. But I mean, that is also my personal belief, which is another reason I wanted to write it down, because it aligns with myself. And to see so many of these people who are so young, so many of them were young, and that typically is who goes to war, sadly, are people who are 18, 19, 20, 21. I mean, in some ways, they're just boys.
Yeah, and this soldier Hauhia that you kind of mentioned there, talking to Rocca about what's it like to kill another man or the enemy. That Hauhia character was played by none other than our Justin Bieber, Robin Pakkalen. Frontside Ollie. Okay, if you're into teen pop, then you can go listen to your heart's content.
Note to self. So this is where I'm going to get very nerdy and a little gay for a minute. I apologize, Henrik. There is a musical called Miss Saigon, which if you have not seen, I highly recommend. It is a fantastic musical, but it deals with the Vietnam War. And there is a line from that musical, which the first time I heard it was seared into my brain, because it deals with sort of the same thing. You have very, very young people being shipped off 3,000 miles to a country they don't know to kill people they don't know. Of course, the Vietnam War is a very different thing than World War II, especially the American involvement and the lying that was done by our politicians to get us into it. But there's a line that says, one of the women, because there's a lot of prostitutes that the American GIs just go and have sex with all the time, and one of the women says about these American GIs, they swear like men, they screw like boys, and then later they kill like men, but they die like boys. And for me, that encapsulates this idea of sending off an 18, 19-year-old to go and do something that is so big. You're sending them off to a war where they are trying to go and kill as many as they can, and many people are trying to kill them. And it's such a horrifying thing. Even in World War II, which, by all means, you're fighting fucking Nazis, which is the epitome of evil. But you have these boys trying to pretend to be men, trying to act like men, and it's so sad. It's war is evil. War is evil. I would love to know what you guys thought about the moments, because there's a lot of beautiful moments. Sometimes it's little conversations about the stars. Sometimes it's moments of beauty with wildlife. There's these great sort of little pauses where a soldier sees a caterpillar on his hand, or he sees a butterfly,
Bunnies.
or you catch a rabbit. Yeah. I'd love to know what you guys' thoughts are on those sort of peaceful moments.
Well, especially I remember really well the rabbit scene, because that's a great juxtapose. That Rocca has just excused or left the headquarters, let's say, and he has been really out angry towards them, and then we get this nice moment of levity with the rabbit, and yeah, I like that. Kind of gives the reality or kind of grounds the audience.
I did like the nature-esque moments of the film, like for example, Zach, the caterpillar scene that you mentioned. When it came to like the more the Dalek scenes, like the looking at the stars and the whole discussion between creationism and evolution theory that they have. Well, that on the other hand, those moments, they just at this point already they kind of just flew by me, because basically you get the same scenes in every version of the unknown. So when it comes to that discussion, as an example, I've already seen it twice, and now I see it for the third time, and I didn't find like that special something that would etch it into my brain.
Yeah, I just think that the way that they were created were maybe with the most thought out of these versions. Even though this film has been also criticized for the lack of vision, that this is just the same shit all over again.
And I kind of can also see that argument. Like in the beginning of the episode, you played the clip where we asked the question like, what is going to be the identity of this film?
Yeah.
And I guess today we are going to find our own individual answers. And at least for my part, perhaps, like let's see where the discussion is gonna go. But perhaps I'm kind of leaning more into, not super heavily, but a little into the direction this is something that I've already seen.
Yeah, to an extent, and it's hard to avoid if you're gonna be so close to the source material. But even then,
Yeah, and it
and like I've said in previous episodes, I feel that even though it's heavily taken directly from the novel, the scenes, like you said, they are the goddamn same scenes all over again. And there's more material in the book. Maybe not as interesting, but they are the same scenes de facto.
Yeah, and it's not just and purely a question of basically seeing the same material, but in my opinion, it also becomes kind of a question of the movie's identity. I was kind of afraid of this when we did the previous two versions, that this one will have to be the film that finds itself in the unceremonious position where it has to fight in order to form like a strong individual identity. And it's basically, or I feel it the way that when it comes to like this film truly succeeding, it either it becomes true or it fails with that question of exactly how strong of an identity or what type of an identity it manages to carve to itself.
Yeah, well, let's say that the 55 version is kind of, as you said, it's more an adventure film than a war film. Something that every film had some kind of a meaning. 55 was that adventure film, the healing project, or yeah, that for the 55 audiences. 85, this realistic edition, and 2017, even though it doesn't do exactly anything mind-blowingly new, it still does a lot right, and I think it does a lot of them better and more polished than the previous ones.
Another thing I wanted to point out too is that the film doesn't shy away from showing some of the maybe not so nice parts. You know, the fact that
Yeah.
Finland sort of de facto did sort of partner with Nazi Germany.
Yeah. Well, this whole war, it's quite of a complicated chess move going on here.
Very.
Yeah. Like on one hand, I'm not a historian or anything, but obviously, but it's kind of like this that we were in between two great powers. You have Germany, Nazi Germany, you have Russia, and at the same time, even though we want our land back, we also kind of had to do that. Like, had we not, it was basically coming from the Nazis' direction that hey, we are in full support of this and please do this. If we had not pushed against the Russians from our side, I'm sure that the Nazi Germany would have been happy to push forwards from our side anyway, with or without our help, because they needed to kind of approach from two fronts to push Russia back and conquer St. Petersburg. And at the same time, we didn't want to, at least most of us, I'm sure, didn't want to proceed any further than Petrozavodsk, or even not Petrozavodsk. There were claims that Petrozavodsk was, those people who know it might know it, was strategically so important that quote unquote kind of needed to be taken in order to secure and keep the Russia at bay were they to re-attack. Take of that what you will, but we weren't willing to go all the way to St. Petersburg. We stopped there, and Henrik might be more better with the history here, but I understand that there was even the change of presidency to kind of to not follow the agreement that we had with Nazi Germany to push even further. It wasn't needed to be followed because there was a change of presidency.
The Mannerheim's presidency, it was so obviously a wartime tactic or tactical movement.
I'm looking at the list of Finnish presidents over the years, and I just had a moment of, oh wow, you guys had a female president for 12 years. Wow, you guys are so progressive and so, so much further on than America.
Didn't you watch Conan O'Brien? That was all the craze when our woman president Tarja Halonen, somehow Conan O'Brien wanted to make her have this second term, and she did win that, and then Conan O'Brien made it the whole number in his show that he traveled to Finland also in support of Tarja Halonen and did all kinds of goofy things around Finland with the people of Finland.
I had no idea.
I kind of believe that wasn't a thing for Zach nor America. But
Yeah.
Finland sure as hell wrote that ticket all the way to the end.
Yeah, I still have the documentary or the Conan O'Brien episode for that if you want it.
Was she a good president?
Accounts may differ, but I went all right.
Oh, I see. She was on the Social Democrat Party.
Yeah.
Okay, very cool. So I one last thing I wanted to add about the idea of it not shying away from showing maybe the unpleasant parts, and that has to do with typically men, usually being the ones who are the soldiers, then taking over these cities and then sort of having their way with the women in the cities. And I thought that was a brave step to take, to say, yes, we're going to tell this story that is very important to Finns, but we're not going to just tell you the pretty parts. We're going to show you the ugly parts too. And yeah, there were times when yes, we did do things that were not right.
Yeah. This 2017 film makes it absolutely clear that there were rapes happening in Petrozavodsk, just downright using the girls. There may have been hints to that direction before, but it's really clear here, and a lot of playing around with women.
Yeah.
And I kind of applaud the film for that.
Yeah, I would make the case that 1895 also, like this once again, this comes essentially down to comparing individual moments and seeing and looking at which one has more frames and which one lasts longer. But I would say that 1895 also made the point.
Yeah, there was at least this older lady, supposedly a hooker, and one soldier was playing with her.
Also, I think something that the film does that a lot of other war films don't do is show you when soldiers take leave. I mean, maybe you see them take leave and they just, maybe go to the next town and, just hang out at a bar and try to just have some normal time, go watch a movie or something. But this one we see a soldier or the main character take leave and go home and see his wife and his children, which I can only imagine could be one of the most invigorating things a soldier can have, is to come home and have that connection with his family again, but then also be one of the most terrible things because now you have to turn around and leave them again after a couple days.
And maybe that's something that doesn't happen too often in war movies, even though it should, kind of giving the real pace and timing of how events happen in war, and not like in, I don't know, some American random war film where it seems that it's constant advancement or constant pulling back or constant movement, whereas in the front it can take fucking ages when anything happens. And people sleep, people wake up, people eat. There's a lot of this normal life sort of in the fronts even.
Yeah, to me it very much added to the grueling feeling of it just keeps going and it keeps going, and you take leave and you go home and you turn around and you have to go back, and it felt exhausting. And I think the runtime, I mean, this movie is 3 hours long, and at times I think it can feel too long, but in some ways I think that's the way it should be. Like, it should feel like it's
Yeah.
there should be moments where it feels like, oh my gosh, this thing doesn't end. Because, for the war, it lasted 4 years or whatever, just the continuation war, or 3 years.
I was just about to ask you, what do you think about the whole, the basing or the structuring of the film, in a sense that it's almost like something out of a new wave cinema of Hou Xiaoshen, where you just start from in the middle of a scene or the middle of an event, and then you kind of end it in the middle of nowhere. So there's no clear beginning and an end. It's just a bunch of things happening.
It makes it feel very sort of cinema verite for me.
Yeah.
We're sort of getting little peeks into these moments. And I think even the fact that, I mean, there's a main character, but I wouldn't say that the film is strong in, oh yes, here's your 3 leads and we're going to follow these 3 leads and here's their backstories and here's where we're sort of following a bunch of people, and then we meet new people and then those people die, and then we meet more people and then those people die. And that also was, I think, a genius structure device to say, yeah, you're not really following a person. I mean, other than the main character, you're sort of just following this time period and this group of people, and good luck to all of them because you never know which one's going to get shot next.
Yep.
I thought it added to the realism. Any final thoughts before we head over into quickies?
Oh, do we? So, Henrik, army stories. Let's open a can of worms.
Or a can of beer.
Okay. Maybe one thing something that's popped into my mind about the 1985 Malberg version, where there's tons of crawling in that film, to an extent where it starts to seem hilarious. And I would say that even in the army, it felt that there was too much focus on crawling, because it seems to be like some invisible wall. Like immediately when you crawl, you're okay. You will never get shot. It'll be just fine. So this approach to crawling is hilarious. I don't maybe see it as much in the 2017
I don't know.
version.
I don't know. It's the best way of advancement in the field. Right after, the knee-high position, also known as korpo.
Yeah, it is the best. This is felt that you become invincible as soon as you're on the floor or on the ground?
Well, you just had shitty trainers. If that was your experience, my experience with crawling was we were doing this one exercise. It was in the middle of a summer. It was like 5,000 degrees hot. We had all our gears with us, and we were like crawling around this sand hole, like sorakuoppa in Finland, in Finnish, and you just keep crawling there. The exercise takes God knows how long, and you have like one superior on top of the hole. And every time you come near him, he starts to like kick sand in your face, while at the same time yelling that after this one there's the weapon cleanup, and and I will fuck you all in the ass if I find some even a like tiny dint of sand from your clips.
Don't tempt me with a good time.
Yeah, that kind of really takes away like the invincibility aspect from crawling, I can tell you. But I did find like even though I did curse it quite a lot in that moment, I did kind of like wish that there would have been even more crawling when once we finally hit to the heavy artillery phase of our training, because oh boy, if that was not my place.
All right, so let's get into quickies then.
Okay, let's do it.
Special mention for an actor. I apologize deeply. I'm gonna butcher this. Eero Aho?
Correct answer.
Oh my, did I say it right?
Eero Aho, yeah.
Eero Aho. Yeah, fantastic job.
As Rokka, yeah.
Yeah, it somehow it is the Rockas who always are like the picks for unknown filmatizations.
I suppose so, but oh my god, I really love those two scenes when he's challenging the authority and has just captured one of the, is it like a Russian general? And then this is omitted, is it in the 1985 or 55 version? That he turns back and then goes like, oh yeah, and by the way, I'm allowed to have these 14 days off because I captured this guy, Captain. And I love that. And that the reaction is the best of all of these three films, and the best performance in this scene by far and wide compared to the other two.
Gotcha. So he's also your pick as well, Karri?
Yep.
Henrik?
Yeah, for me too.
Okay, unanimous decision. If you could bring attention to a smaller role in the film, something you thought worthy of highlighting, I'm going to go with, again, I'm going to butcher it, Aku Louhimies?
Yeah, Aku Louhimies.
Oh, God, so sorry. Oh, apologies to Finland. There was something about his performance that I thought was so sort of innocent in a way. Something about his face I just found very almost sweet.
He's a famous comedian as well.
Oh, really?
In Finland.
Yeah, I very much enjoyed him.
Yeah.
Karri?
Well, I'll just go with Eemeli Louhimies, the son of the director, playing Asumaniemi, this Helsinki city boy, apparently, who asks for some new ammunition and gets shot as he isn't crouching. Yeah, immediately. That was really stupid of him, but I felt that he brought a lot of character to the later parts of the film.
Henrik?
Yeah, I'm gonna give this one to Jussi Vatanen, who plays Koskela.
Absolutely perfect.
Here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really love his kind of attitude. How it's so laid back. Like, yeah, we're just gonna do this and don't pack too much. Maybe the radio would be nice or the vinyl player will be fine.
What resonated with you the most or the least? I'm gonna get really nerdy again. It's not as gay as my last reference. It's just a nerdy reference. Have we mentioned Harry Potter on this podcast before? Maybe not.
Maybe, but yeah, go ahead.
For me, the thing that resonated with me was the realistic depictions of death. I think we see in a lot of films, whether they be action films, war films, or whatever it may be, dying is always very dramatic, and there's these like moments, and it's like, don't you go die on me, no, you stay with me, like it's very, very dramatic, and people's eyes usually close, which from my understanding is not the way it happens. Your eyelids stay open, and so that really stuck with me, resonated with me, and it reminded me of, spoiler alert for Harry Potter, but the bad guy Voldemort dies at the end. Shocker. But he's described as dying as he hit the floor with a mundane finality. And I think that we sometimes think that death can be this big dramatic thing, but in fact, everyone will eventually just hit the floor with a mundane finality. You just die. There's nothing glamorous. There's nothing dramatic about it. You just die.
Let the bodies hit the floor.
All right, Karri, what resonated with you the most, or least?
Rocca losing his cool with his superiors. I think that's been my favorite scene in all of these renditions.
Nice. Henrik?
To me, it was just overall the kind of effective attitude or effective atmosphere that this film did have.
I agree, because in fact, in one adjective, how would you describe the film? I put atmospheric.
I put Finnish.
I put tough.
You said tough? Nice.
Yep.
Favorite quote? I'm going to go with when they're all sitting around eating the canned, I don't know if it was canned tuna or what it was. But the guy opened it up and someone says, "That's forbidden." And he says, "So is killing." And then they just all start eating.
Yeah, I started checking if I've been selecting the same ones throughout these episodes, but no, I think every time something different. So now it's gonna be Suomen sotilas vastaa 10 ryssää. Kyllä kai, mutta mitäs sitten kun tulee se 11? So in other words, Finnish soldier is equals 10 Russians. Yeah, I guess so, but what then when there's the 11th?
That is very good. Henrik?
And I actually draw complete blank here, especially seeing how this is the third time with the exact same dialogue. So basically, it has like we have already gone through with a calm twice.
Yeah.
Do you think this film will have any staying power or legacy? I 100% think it will. Karri?
No, most definitely people will be comparing in Finland these three versions until the end of times, and yeah, I think it's a great movie.
Henrik?
It will, even though, well, we are in the quickies. I have to come back to this question in the longer answers. But yes, it will have a legacy, and it does have a staying power. Then again, this is a filmatization of The Unknown Soldier, and this is not the 1985 version.
Complete the sentence. You really know you're watching the 2017 Unknown Soldier when... Karri?
You really know you're watching Unknown Soldier 2017 again when you open the television on December 6th at 10 p.m.
Henrik?
You really know you're watching The Unknown Soldier, and especially this version when all the ratatatata perkele is not that funny nor that drunk.
Perkele! Perkele! There was a lot of that.
There was a lot of that, and the Petroskoi scene in Mollberg's version is famous for the fact that Mollberg had all the actors acting drunk, or they were really drunk and they were acting.
Yeah, by the way, this Sergeant Major, or what's the character doing the whole perkele? Props for that actor. Love it.
All right, and now we're going to wrap everything up with the $1 million questions.
Oh,
so,
wait. So we have to...
Oh.
Here we go.
The $1 million questions we pose to everyone. Those are, did you like the film? Would you watch the film again? And would you recommend the film to others? I'll start us off and say, I loved the film. I will be watching the film again. In fact, I'm probably going to watch it again right after this. And I would 100% recommend this film to others, especially if they are interested in this part of World War II or Finnish history, or a film depicting war in a more atmospheric, realistic way. Karri, the $1 million questions to you, sir.
I would watch the film again, most definitely. Not immediately, seen these renditions versions so many times lately, but absolutely would watch, but not every Independence Day. Would I recommend the 2017 version? Yeah. I think it's, like I said, the most polished, maybe in good and bad, out of all the three versions. Allow me to explain. So, it may have this super pretty look, which may not always be favorable to it. It's a stylistic choice as much as Malberg's Blair Witch Soldier, as I like to now call it. Well, kind of lame, I guess, but it's a lot of one-take-ish and can seem a little outdated by today's standards. But Louhimies, he understands the character building and giving the characters whatever arc, and he's able to pull off within the limits of the novel. So it's been said, but I'll say it again, it suffers from following Vanillina all the time. It could have been given more artistic freedoms. But I genuinely like and enjoy this film. It tries its very best to have emotional capacity and impact without becoming silly. A little about Malberg maybe, because my appreciation for this one has gone down quite a bit. It's like find a lost Mola tape on the battlefield for one cam footage of a 3-hour scene where the camera is an extension of Malberg's ego almost. And the acting at points is not quite there. And in the end the Major tries to gain the control of the escaping soldiers by, I don't know, whispering. That's one of the low points of the film performance-wise. So don't know what was going on. Likewise, the whole fuss about the 55 version, I don't understand it so much anymore. It's not so well shot. It establishes spaces quite terribly. It's a mess to follow in a tonal sense. It's often badly acted, largely manipulative propaganda to kind of give the little stroke on the head of the Finns who are suffering from the effects of the war. And yeah, okay, understand that, but you miss a lot of important stuff because the film is not building into anything. Stuff just happens. In 2017 version, you remember when the bridge blows up, you feel it. I didn't even recall that there's a bridge explosion in 55, but yeah, it's there. Just kind of like, okay, just happened, whatever. It's just blink and you miss it. And the sloppy performances from the people who actually were in the war, it's almost absurd. Not to use a lot of big words, or I don't want to sound hurtful, but brutally honest, guys, brutally honest.
All right. And finally, Henrik, good sir.
Did I like the film? Yeah, I did like the movie, but that's the word I use, like. Like you, Zach, you said that you loved it. I didn't. I liked it. Will I watch it again? Yeah, I will at some date. And would I recommend the film to others? Kinda depends. This is kind of me retracing back to a lot of like previously asked questions and basically statements that were left open previously on this episode. I would say that this is, when it comes to Unknown Soldier, this is the one that is most easily. This is the easiest version to offer to basically non-Finns. And this very much wants to be the Unknown Soldier that has the global reach. And when it comes to global reach, this has it the most. Then again, and from that end, yeah, it has a legacy. Then again, will it have a legacy inside of Finland? It does, but not as strong perhaps as it will have with USAC or other non-Finnish audiences of the movie. In Finland, I would say that this one will be overshadowed by the 1955 version, which is more of a institution as a movie inside of Finland. This is kind of like legacy-wise in Finland. It falls in the middle. It has less of a legacy than Edwin Line version, but because this is more easily approachable by young Finns and those who don't really have the patience nor the care to actually go and watch a black and white movie, this most likely will be the one that they will carry over. Like the teens of today will remember this one because they won't be checking the 1955 version, and they most likely will not be familiar or even know about the 1985 version. And when it comes to the like overall quality to the film, yeah, from all the filmatizations, this is the easiest to the eye. This is also, once again, to harken back to the whole notion that this is meant for the outside markets also, it is also the most Hollywood-esque when it comes to its cinematography, and when it comes to all together into like the quality of the film. Malberg didn't give a shit. He aimed for the 100% authenticity in the set or in the feeling of the movie, which meant that, you know, the camera equipment you might actually notice that in a scene, in some frames. So he was completely okay with, you know, his film not looking the sleekest. And at the same time, you know, he did get his extras drunk for the Petroskoi scene, so that they would really be drunk, because in his opinion, that feud into the realism. And that's something that, for better or for worst, you don't get in the 2017 version. But that leads into the question that I hinted at earlier, which is the question of identity. And I was afraid that this might happen, and it's an unfair situation for Aku Louhimies' version of the film, but unfortunately, at least in my opinion, it does kinda land in the middle. Like, as it's already said, the Edwin Line's 1955 version, that's like the Kelly's Heroes Adventure Time at the front movie. And then you have like the Malberg version, which tries to be aims to be this ultra realistic, ultra heavy, ultra under your skin, kind of Apocalypse Now take on the material. And then you have like Aku Louhimies here. And the playing field, yeah, it's like 10 miles long. So it's kind of like you would have to be a fucking miracle worker not to land in the middle of the two previous versions. But that's exactly where Aku Louhimies in the end finds himself landing. He's more on he's closer to Malberg than he is to Line, but he still is in the between of those two. Yeah, go ahead, Karri.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, because it seems like it's gonna be like a battle of Malberg and Louhimies. Am I kind of correct?
Well,
let's put it this way.
It is when it comes to asking for the identity of the movie. Like, identity-wise, yeah, Louhimies fights against Malberg.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like my preference with the film, like to put them in the order, my order would be 1985, 1955, 2017.
Wow.
Yeah.
Even though that is totally fine if you do it like that, but is there like a hint of nostalgia, or you just can't drop the 55 to the last position, let's say, for the sake of an argument, because it is the first one and it has this nostalgic feeling towards you? Is that the reason? What do you think is kind of driving you?
what is driving me is the fact that I just really like the 1955 version. Like, when it comes to the criticism of that film, when it comes to like blaming it for being overly patriotic, is it guilty of that? Yeah, it is. Are the actors the best you can get? No, they ain't. And does it take perhaps too jovial attitude with the material, seeing that it's still depicting a real war? Yeah, it does. Like, guilty on all three fronts. With that being said, I'm willing to forgive it the nationalistic attitude for the time period that it came out. Like, once again, it's in my opinion, it's two different things. To point out a thing in the film, to say that this film has nationalistic attitudes in it, than it is to say that this film is bad for it. I'm fully willing to point out the problematic attitudes in the 1955 version and call it off for its nationalistic and patriotic tendencies, but at the same time, I'm also willing to forgive it that, because it was, I do believe that was the take that Finland needed at the time. When it comes to the acting, while yeah, not the best acting you can get, even in your Finnish movies, like when it comes to the cast as a whole, I do take that 2017 as a whole has a better cast. But then again, there are like roles, there are performances that I absolutely do love in the 1955 version. Like, for example, I really do love 1955 Rokka. I do really love 1955 Koskela. And when it comes to the jovial attitude that the film has, I also really kinda do like that. Like, once again, it's not a war movie. It's more of an adventure movie that happens to happen on the front. But as an adventure movie, I really do like it. And because of that, I'm like willing to give 1955 version like its spot on the spectrum when it comes to the whole identity thing. And that's kind of one of the things that I do find that the 2017 version finds playing against itself, because I'm still kind of looking for like the special individual identity with the 2017.
I understand.
And in many ways, I do think that also when it comes to like dealing with the material, it also like finds its with that identity that it's looking for itself. It also finds itself kinda in the middle when it comes to the attitudes that the film wants to portray. Like, this is not nearly as funny and as like devil may care as the 1955 version. But this also is not, in my opinion, as serious and as gritty as was the 1985 version. Like, to give some examples, all the versions, like there's the moonshine moment, and 1955 version shows you the whole. There's the kind of funny boys will be boys moment in that film when the movie shows you how they steal the pot and then they get drunk from the shine, and then there's like the next day hangover when Koskela comes to the chef and starts begging for a piece of salty fish just to help himself with the hangover. You don't get those moments in the with the 2017 version, but you do get the moonshine scene itself. And the moonshine scene, in my opinion, is not as heavy or as dark as it was with 1985. Or then there is the whole Finland was allied with Nazis thing, which does not show up in 1955, but and does show up in 2017 with the archival footage of Hitler's visit to Finland, but in my opinion is not as heavy as that one officer doing the Heil Hitler salute in 1985.
Okay.
So it is tougher and it is harder than 1955, but not as hard as 1985. So, and I kind of find it in the middle ground kind of constantly. And then there are the moments that where I see that it is now, these are the moments that it uses to say that it's different from the two previous versions and it's doing something different. And biggest example of this to me is the whole home front, which, as I already mentioned, I didn't really feel for that in here. And I was kind of, I do really feel that was much ado about nothing. Like, I get what those moments are doing, like technically wise. I get what they are aiming at. They want to show you that these soldiers do have homes and families and parents and wives and kids, and they get to come home at the moment and they have to leave their homes yet again and return back to the front. Yeah, you are stating that. You are showing that. But I never actually felt that the film truly answered why are you showing that? Why are you saying that? And you and Zach, you pointed out that that's something that you don't typically see in war movies. And fair enough, yeah, that's a fair point. And in that way, yeah, there is a point for this film to have the whole home front. But at the same time, it's not something that would be completely like alien idea to you when you think about war. Like, once again, to harken back to the whole notion that this is supposed to be the movie that taught the younger generation, the teens of today, to understand what the war was like to go through for these soldiers. And the home front is supposed to play a big part here, because now it shows you that, yeah, the soldiers did have families, they have parents, they had to leave their homes to go to the front. And if you really are feel that that's something that you didn't understand previously, that you need this movie to teach you that, I kind of have to ask from you, how in the hell was that possible? Like, that was already kind of, that was supposed to be given to you. That was supposed to be plain as day to you, even before you checked out The Unknown Soldier. And because of that, I never actually felt that there was really, truly a need to have the home front present in this film when it was handled the way how it was handled, at least in the movie, where it's just, couple of scenes that just show you, okay, now they get to go home. Oh no, now they are leaving once again.
Yeah.
Oh no, now Koskela is hugging his mom, and then he dies before he gets to come home again.
But it's those couple
That's
of scenes.
That's my rant, you can...
Yeah, but it's just couple of minutes, those small moments and look in the eye that give it just that much extra when you have a little bit more of the emotional gravity of the situation. My main problem...
But I on my end, I didn't feel that.
Fair enough. But my main problem with the 1985 is that it's very one-tone-ish. It may be realistic, but even the characters that were funny and gave this levity and these comedic moments in 1955, 2017, they are absent in 1985. Even if you have, what's the guy's name who is laughing at the Russians who are using the megaphone to give some propaganda messages. That's just 5 seconds of him giggling, and that's all there is in humor in that film. So it's a bit it's, I don't know if I should call it realistic. There's not much emotionally, just a doom and gloom. And but I'm positively surprised, and it's something to be said about 2017, because it's already the third film, as said many times, that it's still able to evoke such joy from me, from those performances, and kind of feel that movie all over again, and realize what kind of, how much you can change the scenes, give them value by carefully planning them out, as seen here. You remember a lot of moments from this movie. They're beautifully set. And also that it has, well, 1985, for its defense, it has this moment in the small little village, not even really a village, it's just a hut somewhere, or a shack. And the guy says that he is Inkerin suomalainen, Inkeri Finnish. So we got this minority aspect there. In 2017 TV version, you have the Nazi soldiers with the Finns. One of them is asking for cigarettes in German. It's just for like a couple of seconds, but it's a nice touch to have that versatility. So, to finish this rambling, my order of films would thus be 2017, 1985, and 1955.
All right. Well, listeners, what did you think? Please leave us a message on our social media. You can find us over on Facebook at The Flick Lab Podcast, or on Twitter at The Flick Lab. You can also find us at theflicklab.com. Give us a rating over on Apple Podcasts. It helps others like yourself find us. We also have a Patreon. You can head over to patreon.com/theflicklab to support us over there. Lots of great content and opportunities. And so, you can also find me on Twitter, ZacharyPenn48, over on Linktree/ZacharyPenn. Karri, where can people find you?
Well, people can find me on Twitter as Karri Ojala, and people can actually write to me as soon as Twitter figures what the fuck they're doing to my account, because at the moment I can't write or tweet or do anything with it, because I'm doing some suspicious behavior with my own Twitter account.
Suspicious.
But yeah, on Patreon, nevertheless, you can hear the newest episodes there several days in advance before anyone else.
Yes.
And I just dropped the Halloween 1978 bonus episode there, so that is only for Patreons forever, so go check that out.
Oh my gosh, it was my audition. I was very, very scared.
It was great.
It was not the shining moment for any of us.
it was pretty begrudging, like, oh god, again, episode 15 about Halloween.
All right, and I assume we can find Henrik in an alley somewhere, or maybe in your...
You can't find me doing the military refresher, because when I left the army, I left it with such of a bad terms with my higher-ups that I won't be called back.
Henrik, hyvää itsenäisyyspäivää for the third time in this podcast. Happy Independence Day.
Thanks, you too, man.
Happy Independence Day, Finns.
Yeah, thank you.
We are so glad that you are independent.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are too. It kicks ass.
And I can't wait to visit your country. Independence is great. Our theme music was created by Nick Graval, and this episode was edited by our very own Karri Ojala. In our next episode of the Flick Lab, it will be a very special episode because it will be our holiday episode, and we will be each going through our favorite Christmas films or winter films or holiday films. May the Lord be with us.
Yeah, rare exports from my side.
It's going to be the rollout of all the classics.
Oh yeah, and a great American classic of National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. It's a fabulously joyous film. All right, that is all for us.
Yeah. Time to throw the lab coats onto the Independence Day candles and start a house fire.
Waiting for Christmas when it's Sona, Axe, and your family.
Yeah. But hey guys, I'm ready to go have sex with the wolves in Inari, so should we proceed?
I'm jealous. All right, send us out, Karri.
Yeah, okay. That's all. Well, did we have something?
Let's see you in a fortnight.
Oh, okay. See you in a fortnight.
Until then.
Later.